All right, it's that time. I filibustered to 9:15, and the properly hydrated Abe Gordon now gets to join us. Are you properly hydrated, sir?
I have. I'm going for a run with the dog right after we chat here. So I had to make sure I get a little electrolytes and hydration, and we're good to go.
Understandable. So congratulations on the hydration, and obviously any time with the puppo is good time with the puppo because the head security officer in Office HD is hanging out right down here out of camera range. So I completely and totally know where you're coming from. You had Saturday night late to think about it. You had Sunday to think about it. And now it is Monday morning. And now what else is stuck in your brain after the post-game show and the goalless draw up in Chicago? And we can get into various topics as we go. But off the top of your head, what is the overarching thought in your brain after the draw?
Well, look, it's tough to look at this as an individual match. You have to go back 3 weeks to the two games at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in which you drop points, because it all ties together. And this was supposed to be the match that gets you back on track. This was supposed to be the match where you recapture some of the points you lost against Philly and Cincinnati. And quite frankly, that didn't happen. And it wasn't necessarily a poor performance, but it is a poor result. And look, it's a point on the road, like we've talked about it before. Going on the road in MLS, trying to get a result, it's difficult. But quite frankly, this was a situation where you felt you were a superior team to the Chicago Fire, and you were not able to get the points that kind of put you back on track. So whether or not it's a point, whether or not it's a draw, you did keep a clean sheet. Congrats to Efrain Morales on his debut. But it feels incredibly disappointing to not be able to kind of get back on track. And it's just frustrating because we've been talking all week about how this felt like an opportunity to get some points back. And ultimately, you didn't do that in Chicago.
And since you mentioned Efrain Morales, I'll go there. And you want to talk about someone who basically, there's always the thought in your head about how the news is delivered. It's like you get a knock on the hotel room door or something, Ephra, and he's told that, by the way, you're starting tonight. And Ephra really handled himself well. I know that the header at the death is something that is going to stick with him for a while, but from a defensive standpoint, Efrain Morales continues Atlanta United's run as center back and he just stepped right in. And Noah Cobb still there was a different health issue apparently this time around, but just not feeling well. Efrain Morales steps in. No concerns in match number one.
Yeah, no, he looked pretty good for the most part. I mean, the first thing that you see from him, if you haven't watched him with the twos, is just the physical stature. He is an imposing figure. He comes in and does get it done physically from a different manner. He won a lot of headers defensively, and then obviously the one you mentioned as he came up late to try and find a winner. And it was there to be had, too. The winner was there, but just a little off target on that one. But I think it was a good learning experience. Honestly, because I view Chicago the way I do, and quite frankly, they don't scare me offensively. It is a perfect game to bring someone in for their debut. They're not having to face a nightmare attack or some sort of individual maestro who can get it done up top. And so this was a good welcoming gift for Efrain Morales in being able to handle that. He looks strong. And like you said, I mean, you got Noah Cobb, you got Abram. Gregerson seems very close to being able to return. I actually thought if this game played out differently, you do see Gregerson in the final 20 minutes. I don't think you bring him back into action of a scoreless game or a 1-0 game. But if you were able to get up 3 or 4-0, like Chicago had been down in recent weeks, maybe an opportunity to get him to run there. But kind of obvious decision not to bring him in at that point. But yeah, Efrain Morales is just another guy who, and look, we've seen it multiple times now from Noah Cobb. We've seen it one time from Morales. We need to see it a couple more before I start to have full confidence and faith that there's no step down, stuff like that. There was one situation where Kuipers almost got his foot, put it onto the crossbar. Morales was there. He needs to deflect that ball. He just, the timing was off. And I don't even know if that's something you can learn or just an unfortunate situation, but he's got to do something more to create disturbance there. And maybe he created enough by whiffing because he wasn't able to put it on target. He did hit the crossbar there, but yeah, I thought a very strong debut from Efren Morales, and he probably knew beforehand. It probably wasn't as chaotic as maybe it felt to us in
Right.
terms of just Noah Cobb's he's not even on the reserves. Like, what's going on? Like, we got the lineup. You're like, well, hold on, what's happening now? Because a lot of our question was obviously about what's going up on top at the left, and because we knew Sean De Silva was going to be out. We didn't know Noah Cobb was going to be out, but I'm sure they had talked about it over the course of the week, both because of the migraine situation. We don't know if this is going to cramp back up, but if it does, here's the plan. But also just, the illness that he was dealing with, whatever little bug he caught, I'm sure it didn't just catch him 5 minutes before game time. They had to know that was a possibility. So I'm sure he was a little more prepared than he would have been a week ago.
Numbers for Efren Morales on the day: 5 clearances, a block, a pick, 3 for 5 on his aerial duels, called for a foul on 1, 92 touches, 77 of 82 passing, 94% accuracy, and then obviously the one shot on target. He had the one block and the obviously the one big chance missed. But you look at 94% on his passing, and you end up with 3 of 5 on your duels, 5 clearances on the day, just dropping right back in. But yeah, we saw it with Noah Cobb. Noah Cobb, once again, unflinching with his activity at the back, and first returns for Efren Morales pretty much the same. And one other guy that I wanted to talk about defensively was Bartosz Slisz. And a lot of folks, if they're looking below the first level of Atlanta United and they're focusing on all the shiny objects, you look at a guy like Bart Slisz who comes in, and he has been, I don't want to say it's a sneaky, maybe for the rest of Major League Soccer, it's a sneaky pickup. But for Atlanta United, Bart Slisz has been the master of lockdown so far defensively here in 2024.
Yeah, it's an interesting position for Slisz because it's just almost always going to be one where you kind of disappear in the game, right? Because everyone looks at the back line, the clearances, the last ditch effort, slides, block shots, and so those guys get a little bit of a glory every once in a while. Certainly up top, you get glory, creating chances, running at guys, taking on, and obviously tallying goals or assists. They get glory up top. He's kind of a lost man in this situation because there's not a lot of glory to be had by the role that he plays, but that doesn't make it any less significant, any less important. And like you said, the glory that he takes is by watching the other team's attack fall apart in the part of the field that he is dedicating himself to, or whether it's a specific opponent, limiting what we've seen from that guy in games coming into versus what he does against Atlanta United. So it is an incredibly important aspect of this team. And there have been almost no complaints for me or my co-host Garrett Chapman in regards to the performance of Bartosz Slisz. Still kind of waiting for him to have one little moment of offensive genius where he kind of gets one. But if that doesn't come, so be it. The importance there of holding the defensive midfield together. It's just one of those things you don't talk about enough. You're always kind of going to underrate because statistically, he's not up front. He's not the last line of defense, but he's kind of in there controlling it all. And it's just really, really important. There's no doubt about that. He's played an outstanding role all season long, really. Really from the very first moment that he stepped on the pitch for United, he's been very strong.
And second highest rating from our friends at SofaScore on the day. Thiago Almada was an 8.6 on the day. Bart was second with a 7.7. 88 touches, 88% passing accuracy, 2 long balls on the day, 2 successful dribble attempts. These duels numbers that we talk about are nuts. 12 of 17 in duels, 9 of 12 on the ground. So he won 9 ground duels, and he won 3 of 5 in the air on the day. And he was fouled once, 2 clearances, 2 blocks, 2 picks, 6 tackles for Bart Slisz on the evening. So just some crazy numbers when you break all that stuff down for Bart. And once again, as we start at the back and we work our way forward, and you end up with Tyler Wolff, Saba, Thiago, Gigi obviously not 90 minutes fit. And then you're looking at the Dax McCarty quote from Doug Robertson of the AJC: when you don't start the same lineup game after game after game. Dax says, I think it's hard to get that continuity and those connections, especially with a couple new players that we brought in. So, once again, Gigi trying to get back to 90 minutes fit, that he would play 127 minutes out there if he was able to, and still trying to solve what's going on the left wing with who can be over there. Is it Tyler and Mosqueda, Saba moving over, still having these questions with folks not 100% and not taking the reins?
Yeah, a tough go for Tyler Wolff again, and really for all of them as you continue to change lineups. But a couple of passes that were there to be had for Tyler Wolff that just didn't quite get completed, maybe a little bit behind, stuff like that. But I did think this was actually one of his better performances. But you still don't get that feeling of fear that you do as a defender, as when Giakoumakis is running at you, or certainly when Saba is running at you. So, look, the chances were there. This is, and I had said this on Saturday night, it'd been a little while since we talked about a goalie just standing on his head, making saves he has no business making. And on another day, in a different setting, maybe you're able to get 2 or 3 by him. But that was not the case today. He made a brilliant save early on Saba diving to his right. He made another great save later with Almada on a free kick. And then obviously the Daniel Rios header. I don't love the idea to head that near post. Just as you see the goalie sliding, like, don't let him slide into the save. You want to make him force direction change. But I think Rios thought he had some timing there. It was a good header too. He got some good power behind it, but right at him, unfortunately. So he made a trio of really good saves that on a different day maybe do get by and touch the back of the net. So, it was a scoreless draw, and you're frustrated from that perspective, but it was just one of those days, and we've seen it so often for Atlanta United. Just we hadn't seen it this year, but a goalie just blindly standing on his head, and so that was unfortunate. But the attack was there, the finishing wasn't, and you do also wonder, as you mentioned, like if Giakoumakis is playing 90 minutes, if he is playing, or what ended up being 102 minutes or whatever the number was.
Right.
Do one of those finishes get completed? Maybe that's possible. But you have to kind of go with what you had. It was there. The XG for a scoreless game at 1.5, and I'm not a huge believer in XG because I think those numbers are wonky.
Right.
But being at 1.5 and ending up with 0 is still pretty frustrating. And I mean, you go back and look at some of the chances that were had, including the one off the crossbar towards the latter stages of the match. I mean, the goals were there. The final touch, unfortunately, just was not. And so the build-up, the creation of moments, I don't think was overly lacking. And so you do have to be pleased from what you saw from that perspective. But in the end, it's results-based. And I don't care how many chances you create if you can't create one goal. And ultimately, you come home scoreless with 1 point.
Chris Brady on the day, 5 saves officially. Really should have been 6. I have no earthly idea, and I've got to track this down. I have no earthly idea what the AR on the near side was doing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, I've got to do my research and figure out which AR was on which side. But there were times where you're scratching your head going, okay, what was that call? What was that call? What was that call? And the fact that we're drawing attention to ARs fresh off of a labor dispute, that's something that you got to, keep an eye on as well. But Brady on the day, 5 saves officially. Should have been 6, but once again, the AR pulls a big save away from him when Brady went full extension to his left early on. Goals prevented, 1.73. There's your margin right there with those 5 saves. Yeah. 1.73 goals prevented. You end up with 4 saves inside the box, 7 long balls on the day. I mean, and then everything else is a 0. But you see the 5 saves that really should have been 6. Goals prevented from Chris Brady, 1.73. And our buddy Hutch here in the Twitch pitch is not wrong. Our team's superpower is transforming opposing goalies into the MLS version of Mr. Fantastic. Not wrong. I always have Kenneth Vermeer in my head when it comes to goalies turning into Mr. Fantastic. For those that didn't get the chance to listen to the post-game show with you and Jarrett Smith, what was the overall vibe in that immediate reaction once the match was done?
Yeah, I mean, look, people heard it whichever way they wanted to hear it, but we were incredibly frustrated. Like I said, we had talked all week about this being an opportunity that you felt good about going on the road and getting a win. I almost never am going to suggest that Atlanta United is going to go on the road and get a win, and that be the expectation. Just because I do know it is difficult, and we found that out Saturday night. But this did feel like the right time and the right circumstances to get back in line. So very, very frustrating that they were unable to do that. Look, some listeners may agree, some may not. There's a lot of focus on Gonzalo Pineda here and a lot of frustration being heaped down on him. And some of it I understand, but some of it, to be frank, like I really don't. Like, I don't think it's Gonzalo Pineda's fault that Efren Morales' header isn't on net. I don't think it's Gonzalo Pineda's fault that a half volley goes to crossbar instead of the underside, or that Chris Brady stands on his head. And so I understand the frustration of not getting the points that we expect to be getting, whether it's at home in certain circumstances or even if it's on the road. But I mean, Pineda didn't turn the ball over on a short corner that led to a 90-yard counterattack. And it's very difficult for me to understand the correlation between blaming a manager and not putting any onus on the players. And quite frankly, I think you've played well enough now in 3 straight games to have results, and you've pretty much minimalized those results. Obviously, the Philly Union game and against the Chicago Fire, like, you played well enough. You didn't find the back of the net like you should have. That's just not on the manager. It really isn't. And look, we're going to get to a point where at some point you do have to get the results, and maybe it does become about the manager. But I didn't see it that way Saturday night. We got a couple of comments in that regards, which I'm just not sure I'm familiar with. But I think a lot of it just stems from the pure frustration that everyone is feeling, the entire fan base, because you said it, Jarrett said it, I said it, Garrett said it. Anyone you've listened to and said this is an opportunity to get back on track, pick up 3 points, and it just wasn't the case.
And I know that we passed 9:30, so Abe, you don't have to mute. Go ahead. It's perfectly fine. Go ahead and show the boss. Is the boss anywhere close?
She's on the other side of the camera. Come here, Chip. Come here. She lets her voice be heard.
Nothing wrong with that, brother. That's hilarious. So since we've cleared 9:30,
she's getting louder and louder.
Just because we cleared 9:30. Oh, very pretty girl. So since it's past 9:30, I know what the boss needs, and so what's the week going to be like for you? I'm going to let you sign off so you can get your laps in. So because last thing we need is for Chip to be profoundly angry for any longer than necessary. So what's the week looking like for you, getting ready for another couple of home matches?
Well, it's going to be interesting because you're starting to work your way towards U.S. Open Cup action, which means you're going to be on a short week after the Minnesota game. But Minnesota is a team that is on a nice little run. They've got 5 goals scored in their last 2 games, both victories. And I think they're up to, I didn't check the final layout of the table. I think they're up to 4th in the Western Conference there. And so that's something that it's another very difficult team, but you do get them at home. We'll see how that plays out. And then also just some interesting thoughts about how the lineup may shake out for the match against the Independents when you hit the midweek. So a lot to focus on this week, but the first point of order is getting back to winning at home. That's something Atlanta United has done as well as anyone in the league, really, especially in recent years. And you probably need this one as much as you needed anyone at home because this 3-week slide, winless in the month of April. You got a couple points, couple draws, but that's not going to get it done. That's not putting the team where we expect them to be. And so a lot of business to take handle of Saturday night on 92.9 The Game.
Excellent promo. Yes, Minnesota currently is 4th, and it's only because they have not scored as many goals as Vancouver. Right now, they are in 4th place with 17 points, 9 matches played, 3 goals scored behind Vancouver Whitecaps. At 929 The Game, at Abe Gordon. Thank you for hanging out, as you always do here on Mondays to kick things off. Go get your laps in, my friend.
Happy to join, man. Appreciate it.
There we go. And so Abe's going to take Chip out because when Chip, wow. I mean, not that we don't have our friends that are vocal, But yeah, when you hit 9:30, I swear, we hit 9:30, 15 minutes in the segment, and Chip was like, time. Literally, that is it.